Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a look at something that really touches so many industries,
Mm,
the global pulp market.
right. It's foundational, really.
Yeah, you shared the Global Pulp Market Report 2025 with us, and, well, our goal is to pull out the key insights.
Okay.
You know, where's this market going? What's making it move?
And the regional differences, too, I imagine. Those can be quite telling.
Exactly. What might be most relevant, depending on where you sit.
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, packaging, hygiene products, even physical books,
Huh? Yeah, some of us still read those.
pulp is just, well, it's everywhere. This report gives a pretty detailed picture of its future trajectory.
Okay, so let's start with the headline numbers then.
Yeah, the big figures.
The report projects the global pulp market will reach USD 45,679 million in 2025.
45.6 billion, roughly. Okay.
What's really interesting, I think, is the anticipated growth,
Where's it heading?
up to USD 63,972.1 million by 2033. So nearly 64 billion.
Wow, okay. That's quite a jump. Suggests some significant shifts happening.
It does. That works out to a 4.30% compound annual growth rate, CAGR, between 2025 and 2033.
Right, 4.3%. That's not just, marginal. It points to some pretty fundamental drivers pushing things forward consistently.
And those drivers, well, the report lays them out, and they seem pretty fundamental to, well, how we live now.
Like what?
Well, first, this growing demand for sustainable packaging, we see that everywhere.
Definitely. Big focus on that. Impacts businesses, consumers.
And then there's the increasing consumption of tissue and hygiene products, sort of a steady demand globally.
Baseline need, yeah. Doesn't fluctuate wildly, but keeps growing.
And for anyone in retail or, supply chains,
Right.
e-commerce,
Oh, absolutely. The impact there is undeniable.
the sheer volume of paper-based packaging needed, it's just massive.
Think about all those boxes arriving at our doors.
Right. That's a direct reflection of this pulp demand.
It really is.
Okay, so we've got this overall growth picture. But what's fascinating is how it plays out differently around the world.
Yeah, the regional breakdown is key.
So in 2025, North America is expected to have the largest slice, over 40% of the global market,
Okay, the biggest chunk.
valued at, USD 12,790.12 million.
Almost 13 billion. Got it.
But their projected growth rate, that CAGR from 2025 to 2033, is, well, more measured, 2.8%.
2.8%. So lower than the global average of 4.3%.
Right. What should we make of that?
Well, North America, it's, a mature market.
Okay.
The growth we are seeing, especially in the U.S., that's projected at USD 10,091.40 million in 2025.
10 billion just for the U.S.
Yeah,
Right.
and a 2.6% CAGR. It's significantly driven by, well, paper-based packaging demand, obviously, but also, crucially, by tightening sustainability regulation.
Okay. So policy is a factor there. If you're exporting to the U.S., you need to watch those packaging rules.
Exactly. And then you've got Canada, smaller market, about 1.5 billion, USD 1,534.81 million in 2025. But a stronger CAGR, 3.6%.
Why higher than the U.S.?
Resources, mainly. Those vast forests. It positions Canada as a major global supplier, very export-oriented.
Right. So if you rely on pulp imports, Canada's one to watch.
Definitely. And Mexico's in there, too, about 1.16 billion, 3.3% growth. Adds another layer to the North American picture.
Okay. So if we step back, North America is big, established,
But future growth looks, steady rather than explosive.
driven by internal demand and those environmental regulations.
Precisely.
Now let's hop across the Atlantic. Europe,
Okay.
in 2025, they're holding over 30% of the global market, just under 11 billion. USD 10,962.9 million.
30%, okay? And the growth.
Projected CGR of 3.2%. So a bit higher than North America, but still below the global average.
Right. And I bet, like North America, the story within Europe is quite varied.
Absolutely. Look at the UK, but 1.8 billion.
Yeah.
USD 1,841.7 million market, but a robust 4.0% CGR.
4%, that's quite strong for Europe. Why?
The report points specifically to regulations targeting single-use plastics, driving up demand for paper packaging.
Ah, there it is again. Policy creating market opportunity.
Well,
If you're in sustainable packaging, that's a direct signal.
exactly. And Germany, even bigger market, nearly 2.2 billion. USD 2,170.67 million, 3.4% CAGR.
Germany's manufacturing base, right?
Well-
Automotive, food, pharma.
Yeah, all needing packaging and increasingly looking at pulp-based options.
Makes sense. A key trend if you supply those industries.
Then you have a whole range of others. France, Russia, Italy, Spain.
Mhm.
Growth rates mostly in the 2–3% range.
Okay.
What's interesting, though, even smaller markets like Sweden and Denmark show solid growth, over 3%.
Mm.
Even Luxembourg, 3.5% CAGR.
Huh. Interesting.
But the rest of Europe category, collectively, only 1.9% projected growth.
So quite a spread. What might explain that variation?
Good question.
Well, it's likely a mix of things, right? How fast different countries are implementing those plastic regulations we talked about.
Yeah, probably varies a lot.
And just the different economic strengths, the industrial focus of each country. Some are further ahead on sustainable packaging. Others might have different drivers.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, let's move to the region the report really highlights as the growth engine.
Asia Pacific, APAC.
Exactly. Projected market size of USD 17,814.8 million in 2025, so nearly 18 billion.
Okay, significant size. What share is that globally?
Around 23%. But here's the kicker.
Ah, the growth rate.
Yeah. Their expected CGR is a whopping 5.3%.
5.3. Okay, that's why it's the engine. Fastest growing by far. What should people be watching there?
Well, it seems tied to ongoing industrialization, expanding consumer bases.
Right. Rapid development in many areas.
China is central, obviously. A huge market, almost
Yeah.
7.5 billion. USD 7,482.22 million in 2025.
Right.
And a 4.8% CAGR. Significant imports, significant domestic production. Newsprint, tissue, packaging.
China's pulp market is just massive. Hard to ignore if you're looking globally.
And it's not just China. Japan, South Korea, also big markets. Steady growth around 4%. But the real standout, growth rate-wise, is India.
India, what's their rate?
Projected CAGR of 7.2%.
Wow, 7.2%. On what base?
Market size in 2025 is projected at USD 1,781.48 million. So smaller than China or Japan, but growing incredibly fast.
And why such high growth there?
Again, the report points to government initiatives, promoting sustainable alternatives, restricting plastic use.
So just like the UK example, policy directly creating that market momentum.
Seems to be a powerful catalyst, and we're seeing strong growth across Southeast Asia too, over 6% CAGR collectively.
So it's a broad regional shift towards pulp-based products. Huge opportunities there for suppliers, for users.
Definitely the region to watch for growth. Okay, let's swing over to South America. Projected USD 1,370.37 million market in 2025.
About 1.4 billion.
And growth.
Healthy CAGR, 4.7%, just above the global average.
Okay. Any standouts there?
Brazil really stands out. Market of about 586 million, USD 586.52 million, but a 5.3% growth rate.
Higher than the regional average. Why Brazil? Eucalyptus. Extensive plantations, fast-growing trees, and a strong export market.
Ah, the natural resources advantage. Makes them a major player if you're sourcing pulp.
Yeah, and South America generally benefits from that fast-growing eucalyptus and pine. Gives them a competitive edge.
Right. And Argentina's growth is even higher, 5.6% CAGR.
It is, yeah. Fueled by expanding e-commerce and packaging demand there, too.
So that e-commerce effect really is global. It's not just a US or Europe thing. Tangible impact everywhere.
Seems like it. Okay, 2 more regions. The Middle East.
Right. Smaller share, I think you said?
Yeah, around 2% in 2025.
Yeah.
About USD 1,735.80 million.
But what about growth?
Pretty solid. 5.0% CAGR projected.
Oh, higher than North America or Europe. Interesting. Key markets.
Saudi Arabia and the UAE are the biggest.
Hmm.
Turkey's printing and publishing sector contributes.
Okay.
And an interesting one, Qatar's growing tourism driving tissue paper demand.
Huh, makes sense. Little niche drivers like that add up. Any other factors?
Again, those government initiatives focusing on sustainability, plastic bans. It's a recurring theme.
Definitely seeing that pattern across regions. Policy matters.
Finally, Africa. Report indicates a 2025 market size just over $1 billion. USD 1,004.94 million.
So about 1% global share.
Roughly, yeah. And a 4.6% CAGR.
Okay, decent growth. Where's that happening?
South Africa is the largest market currently. But Nigeria is interesting. The government there is actively trying to boost local paper production and reduce plastic use.
Ah, another policy driver. Could signal future opportunities there.
Could do.
Even with a smaller current share, that growth in Africa probably reflects increasing industrialization, urbanization, more demand for pulp products across the board.
Yeah, looks like a market with significant long-term potential.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the regional tour. We've covered size, growth. But let's dig into the fastest growing segments within the market itself.
Right, like which types of pulp, which end uses.
Exactly. The report highlights some key areas to watch.
Okay. What's interesting here is often the dynamic between what's biggest now and what's growing fastest.
Yeah.
Like what? Well, take the source of the pulp. Wood pulp, virgin fiber pulp, that holds the largest share currently.
Right. Needed for high quality paper.
Exactly. But the fastest growing segment is actually recycled pulp, de-inked pulp.
Ah, that really underscores the whole sustainability, circular economy push.
Totally. Businesses, consumers, they're prioritizing recycled materials. Directly impacts this segment. Huge for material sourcing, waste management.
Makes perfect sense. What about the grade?
Okay, so grade. Mechanical pulping has the biggest share right now.
Why is that?
It's widely used for packaging, tissue products,
Yeah.
those everyday essentials we talked about.
Got it. Bulk applications.
Right. But the segment growing most rapidly, chemical pulping.
Chemical. Why would that be important?
It likely reflects the increasing demand for higher quality printing and packaging,
Yeah.
where strength and purity are really critical.
Oh, okay. Like high-end packaging. Specialized printing.
Exactly. Those often need chemically pulped fibers. So if you're in those sectors, that growth is directly relevant.
Right. Okay. Source, grade.
Huh.
What about end use?
End use. Well, no surprise. Packaging holds the largest market share.
Given e-commerce and plastic bans, yeah.
It's expected.
But the report points out that the print media category is actually growing rapidly.
Print media.
Really?
In the digital age.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Particularly for books, it seems, in developing economies.
Huh. That's fascinating. Why do you think that is?
Well, it suggests that, physical books still hold real value culturally, practically.
Especially maybe where digital access is less universal?
Could be. Or just strong traditions of printed materials. It's a key insight if you're in publishing or distribution in those regions.
Definitely counterintuitive in some ways.
The report also throws in some other, really specific, interesting trends.
Oh, yeah.
Like increasing investment in something called fluff pulp production in Sweden.
Fluff pulp, what's that for? Healthcare applications mainly. Think baby diapers, adult incontinence products, other absorbent hygiene stuff.
Ah, okay. A niche, but pretty essential application.
Exactly. And the company doing it, Stora Enso, specifically mentioned reducing their carbon footprint as part of it.
Right. Tying back to that big sustainability theme again, it runs through everything.
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
And we see the concrete impact of those single-use plastic rules, EU, India, Middle East, just fueling the shift to paper packaging.
It's not theoretical, it's legislative action driving demand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's even rising demand for paper-based industrial applications in APAC, linked to infrastructure development.
That's interesting. So beyond just packaging and paper.
Yeah, underscores how versatile pulp is. It's not just consumer goods, it's part of broader industrial growth.
And South America's fast-growing forests giving them that supply advantage.
Absolutely. Then you have those localized things like tissue demand linked to Middle East tourism.
Right.
Or Nigeria trying to boost its own paper production. It's all part of this complex global picture. And one more, the growing use of pulp in biodegradable tableware and food packaging.
Oh, yeah. See more of that. Alternatives to plastic cutlery and containers.
Another key trend to watch as we look for more sustainable options.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground there. So after digging into all that, what are the absolute key takeaways for our listeners?
Right. The bottom line, I think, first, understand that the global pulp market is big and it's clearly growing.
Okay. Substantial and expanding.
Second, that growth is really being propelled by these powerful global forces, sustainability demands, changing consumer habits, e-commerce.
Big drivers.
Third, it's not uniform. The regional variations are significant, different growth rates, different local drivers. You need to understand the dynamics where you operate.
Right. Context matters.
And finally, that fundamental shift towards paper-based solutions, especially in packaging and hygiene, that's really shaping the whole industry's future.
That's a fantastic summary. Really clear. And it leaves us with maybe a final thought to ponder.
Okay.
Well, given this huge focus on the circular economy, on sustainability, how might future innovations change things?
Like innovations in recycling or alternative fibers.
Exactly. Could those things reshape these growth figures we've been talking about long term?
Interesting question. Better recycling could certainly impact demand for virgin pulp Alternative fibers could open new doors.
And what about totally new applications, things we haven't even thought of yet for pulp-based materials? Could those emerge?
It's definitely possible. Material science is always evolving. It's certainly a space worth watching.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure.